All right, all right. Happy Thursday, guys. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. My special guest tonight is Troy. He's a part of a group of military veterans called Thor, the Hope of the Revolution. Welcome, Troy. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Sabby. Thank you for having us on. Appreciate it.
So I guess I want to start off with you explaining to everyone what Thor is about and how did it actually form to begin with. As I understand, you are a veteran. My dad was a veteran. So I really like the things that I saw on your website and the issues that you guys are passionate about.
Thank you. Well, this group started back in 2012. I was asked to join it back in 2016. They had seen a website that I had done. So we changed the name from what they had before, Veterans for America, to the Thor movement. We thought it was more the hope of the revolution. It could bring more people in. So I helped build the website. I helped with some of the campaign promises. But a lot of veterans out of Washington, D.C. on the East Coast are the ones that are like pushing this and are moving it. So we're here pretty much. We are going to run a veteran candidate in every single congressional and Senate seat in the country. What makes us different from everybody else is our candidates are going to sign a contract that states that if they don't follow through on 13 of the campaign promises, then they have to pay back all the campaign donations out of their own pocket. So that's literally our veterans putting their money where their mouth is. Look, American people have to sign contracts every day, right? Like you rent a car. You rent a house, you take a bank loan, you do all that, you have to sign a contract. You're responsible for your actions. If you don't make a payment, you have to pay. Why shouldn't our politicians hold up to the same standards?
Wow. You are actually just mentioning something that I think a lot of us had frustration with about the Justice Democrats, because those candidates that ran through that organization, they actually agreed to a pledge, but there were no repercussions if they didn't actually follow that pledge. So they agreed to that pledge. They won those seats. They got into office, but then they didn't uphold those things that they agreed to uphold. But I think a lot of people would be happy to hear that if they don't follow those principles, then they got to pay that money back. That's what a lot of us have been screaming in reference to members of the squad, that like we donated a lot of money to those candidates. And in the end, they decided to just kind of stab us in the back, so to speak, and we don't get that money back. So I think people would be excited to hear what you just said.
Well, think about this. I mean, if we would have had Obama sign the contract, Roe versus Wade would have been codified. If Trump had to sign a contract like this, the wall would have been built. To us, this is the most simplest. I'm surprised no one else came up with this before us, So when our candidates are out there campaigning for our 13 campaign promises, like, for example, let's say Jill Stein signs our campaign pledge, right? Or our campaign promises. She signs the contract. She's on the ballot for 48 states. Now, she has her own agenda, and that's fine. But as long as she signs a contract for the 13 campaign promises, I think people will come out and vote for her. I mean, I heard a story that she's already on 21 states at 15% federal funding, right? Look, we would love to talk to her and get her. Like, we met with Ilhan Omar's campaign manager. They weren't having it. And then today I hear that AOC and Jamal Bowman are begging for money to fight off AIPAC. And we would have reached out to them, but no. So now we're going to run against them.
All right. Well, let's take a look at some of these demands. Eric, if you can share this so I can get the website up on the screen, because you have 13 issues that you are. Okay. So what was really interesting is I'm going to go ahead and go through, mention all 13, and then there's the 4 I told you that I really want to dive in on. So if you guys want to see their website, it's We Are Thor, and the actual website address is wearethor.org. And I want to chime in here at the 13 issues. Our campaign promises are our word. Massive veteran benefits. $1 million for each resident for Flint, Michigan, East Palestine.
I just want to say one thing. Those are our 3 target states: Hawaii, Michigan, and Ohio for the Senate seats, just because of this. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay. Let me just go through these really quick and then we'll massive veteran benefits, $1 million for each resident for Flint, Michigan, East Palestine, Ohio, Lahaina, Hawaii, $33,000 post pandemic check for everyone else who made $300,000 or less a year, $32,000 post pandemic check for anyone who is eligible for the last round of pandemic checks and made $300,000 or less a year. Bring back Roe v. Wade, Glass-Steagall, get rid of Citizens United, no government contracts for non-union companies, police/prisons oversight nationwide, $21 minimum wage and a flat tax, lower drug prices and Medicare for all, eliminate medical and school debt, expanding Social Security and protecting prisons, make public colleges, universities, and trade schools free for all, pardon Julian Assange and Snowden, 21 billion infrastructure bill for every state, and reparations.
It was pensions, protecting pensions, not prisons.
Oh, sorry, and protecting pensions.
Yeah.
So I want to chime in. There's 4 of these I did want to focus on. The first one is the $21 minimum wage and a flat tax. Could you please explain how that would work? Some people get a little freaked out when they hear a flat tax because I remember, I think Herman Cain wanted to do something like that at one point and people were like, no, that wouldn't work. How would you see that working out in your opinion?
Well, first, the flat tax or the $21 minimum wage?
Both.
Okay, so the $21 minimum wage is kind of, we copy and pasted from Bernie's plan with that. I wish we could make it 25 because really 21 is still not a living wage, but it's better than the $15 in some states. And it's better than the federal wage, which is $7.50. Who can live off of that? That's ridiculous. Now, the flat tax, now, this is the thing, like the establishment is going to tell you, no, it's going to raise taxes for everybody. That is not true. All right. If you did a flat tax across the board and the 1% have to pay, like if you do a flat tax, it'll be 19 to 21% across the board. Now, excuse me, we could raise $5.7 trillion just on top of just the 1% paying their fair tax. Now, what is the tax rate? I think it's 35% for most Americans about. I think they would love to have a 19 to 21 tax rate after the flat tax. All it is propaganda from the establishment, from Wall Street, from the 1%. I mean, you can make anything sound like you want it to sound. But if they go to the government oversight and go to, I forget the other website it is, it will prove and it will show you the 19-21%. I mean, how much do you pay in taxes, Sabby?
I couldn't even tell you. It's a lot. I live in Massachusetts, so people call it Taxachusetts. Just to give you an idea.
Here in Minnesota, I pay from 30 to 35%.
Okay.
And that's pretty high for here. I mean, we have 11% state tax, which is high. So what is the cons to a flat tax that you've heard? That it would raise taxes for everybody, the middle class? It's not true.
Yeah. Well, here's a question. The World is on Fire is asking, would a flat tax get rid of local taxes too?
Yes, in some scenarios, yes. But the compromise would be where you would let the states have their regular tax and the federal tax would be a flat tax. So it depends what the compromise would be once you get into Congress and what the deal is going to be. So to answer the question, yes and no. Depends.
Okay. And then the idea is that the 1%, that top 1% would pay their fair share, which they currently don't.
Well, Jeff Bezos paid 0 in taxes last year.
Yep.
He made $770 billion. So how is that fair?
It is such a mess. It's such a mess. Yeah, I totally understand that. I do appreciate the fact that you have $21 minimum wage and not the $15 minimum wage, just because I feel like the $15 minimum wage is so outdated at this point in time. I think we have moved past that as a society.
Oh, no, God. We talked with the SBA because one of the pitfalls we're going to run into are one of the speed bumps is small businesses that have 100 or 50 employees or less are going to like, we can't afford it. I mean, that's the talking point that they always bring. So we would give them tax cuts for any company that has 100 employees or less. That would make the difference up. But $21 people need. Well, 25 they need, but 21 is what I think we can get.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I know Professor Richard Wolff says it should be like at least $35 now if we're adjusting for inflation. But
Yes.
I hear what you're saying. You think 21 is what we could actually get. This is a good question here from the Oracle. Would he be eliminating deductions and other loopholes? So you know how sometimes the 1%, they have like these offshore accounts. Would there be a method for preventing that as well?
Absolutely. We're going to get rid of them. Look, being a veteran group and having a lot of veterans within our organization, we're attacking this problem as like a war within strategy. All right. We're going for the home run. We're going for the jugular. Okay. I don't know if I can say this word. We're not pussyfooting around. Okay. We are going after them. Look, they have taken advantage of the American people over and over and over. They have fleeced America during COVID. All right. This is a war against the middle class and the underclass, against the establishment and the 1%. All right. We're not playing around here. So that's why we're willing to sign this contract. These veterans and these candidates are willing to put their money where their mouth is. How can you not ask for anything less? I mean, you get people that come out and promise everything. AOC will promise and everybody else. And then you have a candidate, a Thor candidate says, no, this is what I'm going to give you. This is what I'm going to fight for. This is what I'm signing my name on the contract for you. How do you not love that?
Well, let's move on to one of the other points that I want to touch on as well is health care. So lower drug prices and Medicare for all. Let's dive into that a little bit. At this point, I think some of us would say we need like a nationalized healthcare system similar to what they have in the UK, although the UK is trying to move towards a privatized system at this point. But something like similar to what they have in the UK, or as someone who is a veteran, and again, like I said, my dad was a veteran. What about TRICARE for all? As I remember growing up, TRICARE was great health insurance. They paid for almost everything. What about that? And then also, let's dive into, what do you mean by lowering drug prices?
Well, if we get Medicare for all, we won't have to lower drug prices. It will be part of the package. And I think why we're fighting for Medicare all is because it's really, it has name recognition. I mean, being a veteran, love TRICARE. A lot of the veterans love the TRICARE. That could be an option. If the establishment says we can't do Medicare for all, then we give them TRICARE. But we're going to shoot for Medicare for all because that is still the better option over TRICARE. So we have two options. I mean, the great thing about going at this is you shoot for the stars and you compromise a little bit. TRICARE could be the compromise. Let me ask you a question. Would you like Medicare for all or TRICARE?
It's tricky because I do know people that have Medicare, and the biggest problem that they're running into is that, you know, Medicare does pay like that 80%, but they're still responsible for that 20% co-insurance. Now, for people that are, I would say, boomers or silent generation, a lot of them, when I worked at the skilled nursing facility, a lot of them had like this supplemental health insurance from years working at Bell South, like back when Bell South was a thing, right? Or AT&T. And so they automatically had that as a part of just retiring with that company. The problem that you run into with people, particularly from my generation and the Gen Z generation, is that we tend to move around a lot in reference to jobs just to get a higher wage. And the retirement issue, it's like, we don't get a pension. Most of us, this is not a thing. So what they have opted for is to convince us to basically sign up for a 401k and have part of your paycheck go towards that 401k. Problem is, a lot of younger people are they're not making enough money to actually have a 401k. So then I worry about like having that supplemental insurance. And that's my fear, is that a lot of the people that are Gen Z, by the time they're eligible to get like Medicare, or if they got Medicare for all, they don't have that supplemental insurance to cover that 20%. And so my ultimate goal would be a nationalized healthcare system so that they wouldn't have to worry about that co-insurance.
Well, okay, so it would come down to money, right? So with our 6.5% tax on Wall Street speculation over 20 years, it's going to bring in close to $64 trillion. So let's say we did Medicare, which Medicare is going to be 32 to 34 trillion. Bernie said it's going to be coming up to 27 trillion. With the money that we would save from all the other programs that are like a one-time, like reparations, or Lahaina and stuff like that, we could still save, because when you put in Medicare, part of that money that will pay for it is Medicaid and Medicare that is on the books now. So we actually would cut it in half by $17 trillion. Now, TRICARE, I'm not familiar with the numbers too much, but in the military, I think that is also part of the military budget. So I'd have to look at that. So if Medicare would save money overall, and we could put that money then into maybe that 20% where people have to do the copay or have to pay, we can make it up for them. Because I don't think people should be in debt because of medical expenses. It's ridiculous. So yeah, there's an option that we could work. Absolutely.
Right. And I have noticed, I've read a couple of articles recently that are saying that more older people now that have retired are having to try to go back to work or pick up some type of part-time job just to pay for medical expenses. So that's another thing that people run into. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, look, we're going to run into roadblocks, especially when it comes to Medicare for all, because everybody has promised it and everybody falls short. Now, this is the first time I've heard, when I talked to you and Roger before, about TRICARE. TRICARE could be an option if Medicare can't pass. Absolutely. At least it's better than the system that we have right now. Even with Obamacare, there are still, I believe, 6-7 million people that are uninsured.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a huge amount. So TRICARE could pick it up, or Medicare could pick it up, whichever one we can get passed. But here's the thing. When that we're going to fight for it, like we're signing a contract. So we will put it in every bill that passes. We will get up on the floor. Every news cycle that we run or interview, we will bring it up.
Okay, so we were talking about Medicare for all, and you said that TRICARE could be the backup if we didn't get that. And that leads me into this issue here, expanding Social Security and protecting pensions. This is a big one, I think, for a lot of people. I don't even think that by the time I'm eligible, I don't even think I will get Social Security. So this is a big concern for a lot of people.
Okay, so expanding Social Security with the money. So it all goes back to that 6.5% that we can raise off of Wall Street, right? We can easily not double, 50% Social Security raise easily, because we're going to have trillions of dollars left over after 20 years. We'll be able to pad Social Security. So, I mean, it's already a good program right now. It always has a surplus right now. But in the future, you don't know. So that's why that 6.5% tax is so important. We could raise it by 50% for seniors out there easily. Don't let anybody tell you we can't. We have the numbers. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'm going to send you the numbers that I put together today so you have it, and we're going to put it on our website so people can see. Don't let anybody tell you that these numbers don't add up. They are from the government office. They are from different outside groups. And no, we have enough money. Now, with the pensions, that's a little bit more difficult. So if a company goes bankrupt, of course, they lose the pensions. But then the CEOs and the board get these golden parachutes. We're going to put into law that if a company goes bankrupt, they have to pay the pensions before they get any golden parachute at all. If they disobey that, or if we can't get it into law, and they take their golden parachute, we'll tax them at an 80% tax rate and take that money and pay back to the people that lost their pensions. We're not messing around. So now there's two other ways you can lose your pensions. The bankruptcy is one. Another one, which I didn't know about it until I researched it, was, do you know church organizations have where they can get the pensions, but they're not legally bound to pay the pensions. If they go like bankrupt or they do whatever, they don't have to pay their employees and pensions at all. So to make church organizations adhere to that, any church that makes $1 million or more, property taxes on the money. These super churches down in Texas that are like $400-500 million, that's not the word of God. They're not preaching what Jesus said. Bullshit. No. And this prosperity church thing about, like, he literally is bragging on YouTube about, hey, I have this jet and you got to give me this jet. Now, sometimes I can't fault him because people give him the money anyways. So maybe it's the parishioner that's the problem also. But no, we are going to start taxing churches 1 million over. And yeah, no, they're not going to get away with this no more.
You're speaking my language. I've been complaining about this for years. I've thought it was ridiculous a long time ago. I still think it's ridiculous. The mega churches, especially, because they're bringing in a lot of money. And I'm sorry, like,
they're not preaching the word of God, right? No.
And I've talked about this before. I'm like, I've seen, if you see people coming into the congregation and they're pinching money here and there so that they could put money in the collection plate, but at the same time, the preacher is driving off in a fancy car with rims and has a private jet. I've complained about this for so long.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's going to stop. Sabby, I hate to be redundant and repeat myself. Like I said, we are not playing games. We're going after everybody. No, the time for the middle class and the poor. Look, the 1% thought a reset was coming. It's just not the reset they thought. That's it.
I hear you. And then there's also this one I want to touch on as well. Pardon Julian Assange and Snowden. Let's get into that. Now, this is interesting because I want people to understand this is coming from veterans.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
How do you feel about this? Because some people or pundits in mainstream media, if they brought on someone who was a veteran to talk about Julian Assange and Snowden, it's obviously going to be favorable towards what the military industrial complex would want, right? Like they would agree most likely with the government. They wouldn't bring on someone like yourself that would agree with pardoning Julian Assange and Snowden. So I want to hear about that.
Correct. So I just have one question before I answer that. Do you believe or do you think Congress is corrupt?
Yes.
Okay, guess what? There are 93 veterans in Congress. So not every veteran is a good veteran. So Fox could bring on a veteran. That doesn't mean he's a good veteran. He's propagandizing their talking points. No, a lot of veterans understand, they've been overseas, they've seen it. I've gone to 7 funerals in New Jersey on the East Coast, and I'm tired of it. Look, I'll start with Snowden. Snowden exposed what our government and the CIA and all these dark circles organizations were doing under our noses against American citizens. How can you not reward that? How can you not say, oh my God? Now, look, he ran to Russia. Snowden is more of a difficult course to transverse than Julian Assange. It is. That's just the reality of it. Julian Assange, we want to free him. We not only want to free him, we want Ecuador, United Kingdom, and the U.S. to pay $1 million for each year he's been incarcerated. So that comes out to be $18 million. And one of the first things we'll do, one of the bills we're going to put attached, is freeing Assange. They should do it now. Matter of fact, I know we're going to get to reparations, correct? So I want to say this. Remember, I in the email, I said we have an out-of-a-box kind of thinking towards Trump.
Yep.
Now, I worked for Biden. Bernie. I'm a Bernie supporter. But Trump, what's the one thing that you can rely on? One, he's vain as hell, right? So if Trump decided to sign the contract, now he's not going to sign for all 13, but if you sign the 6.5% tax rate, if you sign for the Veterans Affairs, you sign for Lahaina, you signed for the post-COVID check, what we will do for you, if you do it, now you got to sign it, we'll put your face on Mount Rushmore. Well, every bill we pass. He's so vain. He actually might go for it. I mean, look, if he could get us Medicare for all, the $33,000 COVID check, and the 6.5 tax rate, who cares if his face is on Mount Rushmore? And for the fact, I would love Hillary Clinton to have a heart attack, knowing that his face is going to be on Mount Rushmore. I'd love to have the DNC have a heart attack. I would love the establishment. Now, granted, I mean, that's crazy. It's out of the box, but you never know what'll happen. Now, back to Julian Assange. We are going to fight for him from day one. Look, what he did was amazing. He should be the number one journalist in the world. And they crucify him. They speak ill of him. They keep him incarcerated. No, that's not right. Look, military people, how many military people have become whistleblowers? Because they know. And a lot of good veterans, they keep their mouths shut because they're afraid. And I get it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, that's why we're picking veterans. But I will say this. There are some civilians, like, for example, that gentleman, very articulate gentleman out in San Francisco that ran against Nancy Pelosi. We would love for him to sign our contract and run against her. Jose Vega in New York, right? Or that lady running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Look, if you're a veteran, you're listening to this, even a civilian, if you're strong enough to say, hey, yes, sign our contract, we'll back you, we'll support you. Guys, we can only do this together, really. Okay, I'm sorry. I went off on a...
Oh, no worries. And then I want to get to this point here. You also have reparations. And for those who are just joining, Troy is a part of an organization called Thor. They're military veterans, and their goal is to get military veterans that are part of this organization to run for office. They have 13 issues. I think these are really good issues. Let's go ahead and talk about reparations, and let's close with that.
Okay. It's kind of like the third rail, isn't it? A little bit. So reparations, there are different estimations. We're talking 1.4 to 47 trillion, 5.7 to 14.2, or the highest estimate is 17.1 trillion. The average is 8.62. So let's go with that. All right. I know that there is some things about lineage versus non-lineage. All right. I think they both have good points, and I think it's a very good debate. There are three subjects that they actually agree on. So I think it's going to be a third rail bringing it up, but we're willing to fight for it, and we're willing to sign a contract that says we will fight for it. That's it. I mean, you could school me better on it than I could. So
I would actually say, I mean, I know I wouldn't consider myself to be an expert. I would defer to Dr. Sandy Darity because he wrote the book about, what is owed and why it's owed. And he actually explains why it should be based on lineage instead of race, because if you base it on race, it can be overturned by the 14th Amendment. That's incredibly important for people to understand. So I think that Dr. Sandy Darity, I would start there. I could put you in contact with him. He's been on the show.
Sure. Well,
he really breaks this down.
They make a good point on both sides about you have the American, Black Americans that will go to the American court. Then you have with Cuba, they have to go to Spain. With Haiti, they have to go to France. Completely understandable. But, there's a thing during civil rights also, right? So they should be, what's the word I'm looking for? They should be, oh my God, I'm at loss at words, Sabby. Sorry. I'm usually not. They should get what they're owed, not just from slavery, but from the civil rights, right? So they weren't allowed to go into banks or higher education, right? So what about them? What about the GI Bill? Blacks weren't allowed. I mean, there's a lot of reasons and a lot of different avenues for reparations, for sure. But what you can be sure of is we're going to sign a contract and say we're going to fight for it. So we will bring it up in Congress. We will bring it up in Senate. Every interview that our Congress and Senate do will bring it up. It will get media attention where more people will start talking about it. And that's how you get it going, right? What else can we do?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I really like the idea that you're saying that these candidates would have to sign a contract, and if they didn't do what they were supposed to do, then they would have to pay that money. Because honestly, I feel like that should be the case for every politician that runs for office. That if you don't do these things that you promised to do, I feel like you should have to pay that money. And I've been saying this for a long time. It's just, you don't get to take millions of dollars from people, and then when it comes to voting on legislation, you just vote in the other direction than what you ran on. And then all these people, especially working class people that gave their last $10 and $20, it's a shame. But like, those people will never get that money back.
No. But you know what they will get back? They'll get a $33,000 post-COVID check. Those poor people in Lahaina, in Flint, in East Palestine, and any future disaster. Because it seems that monetary is now the new justice. So that monetary has to be so high that corporations and the establishment, the 1%, do not want to do it again. Plain and simple. I want to say this, though. We do need candidates to come out, and we want to take down the squad. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Nancy Pelosi. Guys, we can't do this alone. We have to do it together. I mean, we really do. And about the contract, how come no one came up with it sooner? And other than that, I would love to see a mainstream media person ask Biden or ask Trump if they would sign a contract like this. Everybody in the districts around the country, ask your congressman, your current congressman, hey, would you sign a contract like this? Ask the Senate, would they sign a contract? Remember the story about Sodom and Gomorrah? Like God said, is there one good person here? Here's the deal. We'll offer to one senator on each side and one congressman on each side. If you sign the contract now, we won't run against you, with the exception of Hawaii, Michigan, and Ohio. You there's no redemption for you. You screwed up. You should have took care of your people. Other than that, let's find out if there's one good senator and congressman. That's the offer we'll put out there, and we won't run against you. Let's see.
Interesting. Well, Troy, thank you so much for coming on. Eric, when you get a chance, can you put the link to the website in the chat so people can follow that on their own? But thank you so much, Troy. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.
Bye. All right, guys. So that was Troy. He's a part of a group called Thor. It's a group of military veterans. Thor stands for the hope of the revolution. They are veterans. Their motto on the website says, I just want to put this up here. It says, we are Thor. We are very angry. We are not alone. And we are just getting started. We are a group of military veterans. It says, who have a majority of registered Democrats and some Republicans within our group. Our organization is over 415,000 strong. It has to start somewhere with someone with some cause that ignites us to become unified. I would encourage them to run as independents or to run third party. But it was interesting. It's always good to hear a veteran say, we need to free Julian Assange. It's really good when you hear someone who's coming from the military community say that, because most people are not willing to do that.